Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am your teacher, Dr. Khurram Shehzad. I am from National University of Modern Languages. Today, the topic of our discussion is cooperative principles. It is one of the topics that we usually discuss in pragmatics. Cooperative principles were given by Paul Grice in 1975. So we should remember a principle proposed by the philosopher Paul Grice, whereby those involved in communication assume that both parties will normally seek to cooperate with each other to establish agreed meaning. It is composed of four maxims, that is, maxim of quality, quantity, relation, and manner. So, one of the very important lines that people usually quote when they are discussing Paul Grice is the cooperative principle says we should aim to make our conversational contribution such as is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose or direction of the exchange in which we are engaged. So Grice based his cooperative principles on four sub-principles or maxims. These are the maxims of quality, quantity, relation, and manner. So now I will elaborate on them. The maxim of quality says we should try to make our contribution one that is true. It means we should be truthful. So whatever we are saying, we should have evidence for it. If we do not have evidence for something, we should not say it. Do not say what you believe to be false. When you already know that something is false, you should not say it. Do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence. Say what you believe to be true. Dear students, you should remember Paul Grice is not saying something very different. Our Holy Prophet ﷺ and our religion Islam also propagates truthfulness. Our religion says that when we are interacting with the human beings, we should tell the truth. We should not lie. And we should not talk about those things we do not have any evidence for. The maxim of quantity. Make your contribution as informative as is required for the current purpose of the exchange. Do not make your contribution more informative than is required. So whatever is the required information, you should give that information to your listener. Do not add anything from your side and do not exclude anything from the truth that you know. Number third is the maxim of relation. So we should be relevant. We should not talk about those things which are irrelevant. The maxim of manner. Maxim of manner demands that we should be perspicuous. We should be clear. We should avoid obscurity of expression. The expressions that we are writing or the words that we are speaking, there should not be any ambiguity in them. We should avoid ambiguity, obscurity. We should be brief. We should avoid unnecessary prolixity and be orderly. So these are the four maxims that we should follow when we are interacting with the other human beings. So I have already talked about conversational implicatures because when we are interacting with the human beings, we implicate certain things. For example, according to Grice, utterance interpretation is not a matter of decoding messages, but rather these involve taking the meaning of the sentences together with contextual information. Because human beings, when they are interacting with one another, there is always some setting, there is always some context. So human beings without context, they do not speak. In the classroom, there is context. Teacher and students, they are supposed to learn, they are supposed to discuss something. So the context is provided. For example, today we are having a conference in National University of Modern Languages, and people are talking about spatial, space and place and the role of space and place, environment in the culture and linguistics. So the topic is providing us the context. So we know what is the context. Accordingly, we are supposed to speak our sentences. Accordingly, we are supposed to interact with the human beings. So when there are contexts, there are inferences. Human beings, they infer. The closer you are to someone, people use ambiguous language, and then we will have to infer certain things. We should keep this thing in our mind. I have just talked about four principles: maxims of quality, quantity, relevance, and manner. Remember, human beings, when they are interacting with each other or one another, they do not follow, usually they do not follow these principles. Rather, they violate or flout these principles. So later on, I'll talk about them as well. So we are just talking about implicature. So when people, they do not follow these principles, there are certain things which are implied. As I have already given you the example in some of my lectures, that one of my colleagues is saying, let's go outside and have some tea, and I give the answer, I have got a class. So it seems that my answer is not relevant because I have not said yes, I have not said no, but I have said that I have got a class. So of course, the person who is listening to this utterance will have to use the cognitive ability to understand that what actually I mean by I have got a class. So I have got a class means that right now I cannot go with you. So this sentence, it has got implicature. It has implied meanings. So we are implying something in it because we do not want to hurt the feelings and emotions of the other person. So implicature is used, and usually it is used when people, they do not follow the maxim of quality, quantity, manner, or relevance. Working out what the speaker means on the basis of the assumption that the utterance conforms to the maxims. The main advantage of this approach from Grice's point of view is that it provides a pragmatic explanation for a wide range of phenomena, especially for conversational implicatures, a kind of extra meaning that is not literally contained in the utterance. Of course, these meanings are not literally contained in the utterance. I have got a class, the person will have to use the cognitive ability and will have to understand that I mean to say that I cannot accompany him outside. So conversational implicatures can arise from either strictly and directly observing or deliberately and openly flouting the maxims. That is, speakers can produce implicatures in two ways: observance and non-observance of the maxims. Husband, where are the car keys? Wife, they are on the table in the hall. The wife has answered clearly, manner is there, they are on the table in the hall, and truthfully, quality is there, has given just the right amount of information, quantity is there, and has directly addressed her husband's goal in asking the question, that is relevance. So the answer is very relevant. Where are the car keys? They are on the table in the hall. She has said precisely what she meant, no more and no less. He is a tiger. Now, here the things are implied. Example 2 is literally false, because when I say this thing to Ali, for example, and I say Ali is a tiger, so Ali does not have four legs, Ali does not have a tail, Ali is not going to attack me. So these qualities, these characteristics, Ali does not have. But of course, metaphorically speaking, I have implied here that Ali is a lion. It means that Ali is as powerful, Ali is as brave as lion is. So example 2 is literally false, openly against the maxim of quality. For no human being is a tiger, but the hearer still assumes that the speaker is being cooperative and then infers that he is trying to say something distinct from the literal meaning. He can then work out that probably the speaker meant to say that he has some characteristics of a tiger. Tom has wooden ears. Sentence 3 is obviously false in most natural context, and the speaker in uttering it flouts the first maxim of quality. So I share some of the other examples, and I now differentiate between flouting and violation. Remember, most of the speakers, when they are interacting, they flout. Why do they flout? Because their intention is not to deceive the other person. Remember, interactants, human beings, when they are interacting with one another or each other, they flout the maxim of quality, quantity, manner, or relevance. But their intention is not to deceive the other person. And the hearer or the interactant or the listener is supposed to understand the meaning. If he or she can easily understand, well done, good. Because the job of the speaker is not to deceive the listener. So we need to understand this thing. So here I share one of the examples of flouting the maxims of quality. For example, we have a library in the university, and usually when students they go to the librarian, you know, his or facial expressions, they are quite different. So let's see. Librarian raises his eyes, looks at the student with no facial expression. Student, hi, could you check for me whether I have any books to collect? Librarian swipes the student's card, clears his throat, wipes his nose, so dirty, with a tissue, glances at the computer screen, turns to the shelf to get a book, then another book. Student, any more? Librarian turns and gets a third book, stamps them all with the return date. Student, is that all? We know that a student can have 2 or 3 books at a time, not more than 3 books. So now the librarian understands the whole situation. Librarian, he says, are you going to borrow all the books in the library? Student, okay, I see, thank you very much. So now, of course, the student was playing games with the librarian. He was teasing him intentionally, and he did not want to deceive the librarian. And librarian understands the whole situation, and he says, are you going to borrow all the books from the library? So he was trying to, flout the maxim of quantity. Now there is another example of the flouting of maxim of relation. So this is the example of 2 students, Chinese student and American student. As they are walking to the station, the following conversation occurs. Chinese student, what do you do in America? American student, I work in a bank. Chinese student, it's a good job, isn't it? American student, well, just so. Usually people, they are not happy with their job. So even if they are having a wonderful job, they will never be satisfied with the salary. And Chinese intends to ask that how much his or her salary is. Chinese student then, how much is your salary every month? Because now the person has told that he is working in the bank, and usually people think that the person who is working in the bank is earning a lot of money. So he is asking a question that how much is your salary, which is an irrelevant question, because student who does not know the other student should not ask him this question. Same is the case, sometimes students they ask me what is your salary, which is very irrelevant question. So, oh no, American student says, oh no, Chinese, what's wrong? Chinese student is unable to understand the situation. Why are you asking that? Just asking, nothing else. The station isn't far, is it? And the American student runs away from that place because he feels that the Chinese student is asking irrelevant questions. So this is how the person has flouted the maxim of relevance. So same is the case. There is another example of, flouting of quantity, or sometimes quality. For example, there is another example. Can I get 6 thin slices of Danish ham, please? 6 thin slices. Slice is already thin, but knowingly the student or the person is asking 6 thin slices. So in our daily interaction, we quite often, we flout the maxims. But remember, when we are deceiving the other person, when our intention is to deceive the other person, then we are violating the maxim. So this is the difference between flouting and violation. Now there is another concept which is called overlap between maxims. There is also often overlap between each of Grice's maxims. An utterance may be both unclear and long-winded, flouting the maxims of quality and quantity at the same time. Equally, it may be socially acceptable and indeed preferred to flout a maxim such as quality for reasons of tact and politeness, such as when I ask someone if they like something I am wearing and they don't. Yes, sometimes, quantity or quality, both of them are flouted at the same time. If I ask someone or someone asks me, how do I look like? And when you look at the dress of the person, in fact, you do not like it, but just for tact and politeness, you tell a lie and you say, yes, you are looking nice. Yes, you are looking great. So, because we do not want to hurt the feelings and emotions of the people, and for the purposes of being polite, we sometimes lie. Remember, there are some other things that Grice talks about, like when you are flouting the maxims and when you are using the similes and metaphors, overstatement or understatement, basically lie, the factor of lie, it comes into play. But there are certain other linguists and philosophers, they believe that when people they are flouting, no lie is being told. So we should keep this thing in our mind that there are differing opinion of different linguists and philosophers. Well, dear students, today we have talked about cooperative principles. Paul Grice says that when we human beings are interacting with each other, we assume certain principles. And these principles are called maxim of quality, quantity, manner, and relevance. So we should tell the truth. Our answer should not be more or less than it is required. We should be relevant and there should not be any ambiguity, and we should be orderly in our interaction with the human beings. Then I have talked about that human beings they also flout these maxims. So flouting and violation, there is a difference. Flouting means when you are knowingly flouting the maxims, but your intention is not to deceive the listener. You want that the listener should understand it. So when you are knowingly using metaphors and similes, in fact, you are flouting the maxims, but your intention is not to deceive, you are not telling the lie. But when you are violating the maxims, so the speaker's intention is to deceive the listener, and this we should avoid. Thank you very much.